Okay, I think we can get started here.
Mhm.
So, a very warm welcome to everyone that's attending this session. I'm John Hamalian. I'm part of the Glean Global Network. I'm based in Singapore. And there's a couple of people I would love to introduce that are not tremendously far away from Singapore. And I'm actually happy to say that this year's LGC, Lean Global Connection, is the first one, I believe, in 4 years to have any sessions from Indonesia, which is one of the most populous countries in the entire world, extremely important. And so it's so wonderful to have this session. And also, we have a couple of other sessions too. Do check them out. And I think we have at least three from Indonesia total. So wonderful, wonderful, wonderful to have you guys join us and be able to represent your great country as well. So I'm going to introduce Jarrett, and Jarrett will introduce our main speaker, Adrian. Jared and I have known each other for quite a long time. We met in Singapore many years ago, I believe actually with John Shook. John was in Singapore at the time. We had a nice meeting together. And Jared has a lot of experience, basically an IE background, and has been helping out companies through his work, many different companies for many different years. And one of those companies he has helped is where, and that's where our speaker comes in, is Adrian. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Jarrett, and take it from here.
Thank you, John. Greetings all Lean practitioners and Lean community around the world. I'm Jarod Anrogo from PKM Consultants, Indonesia. We've been facilitating continuous improvement community in Indonesia for the last 37 years. And we are honored to have a chance to introduce one of our clients, Bayer Indonesia Consumer Health Product Supply Center. We've been helping Bayer in Lean implementation since 2011, and this year, Bayer have achieved Diamond Prize and People Choice Award in Indonesia Continuous Improvement Convention 2024. Here with me, Mr. Adrin Ramdana Rauf. He's been working in Bayer for more than 11 years with various roles such as operational excellence, supply chain management, operations, and currently as manufacturing business unit lead. Adrian will share the lean journey at Bayer's Consumer Health Product Supply Center, detailing the key approaches adopted, including housing country, people and leadership development, and process performance improvement. Adrian, the stage is yours.
Okay, thank you, Pak Jarod. I'm very excited to be here and honored to share our lean journey to excellence at Bayer Indonesia Cimanggis Supply Center. Bayer is a global life science company and have strong foothold in the healthcare and nutrition category. Uh, we have three divisions: crop science, pharmaceutical, and consumer health, and operated in 83 countries. Uh, Cimanggis Supply Center, part of consumer health division. Consumer division, as of last year, has sales around 6 billion euros, employees more than 10,000 people with more than 150 trusted brands, with headquarters located in Basel, Switzerland. Cimanggis itself is a strategic supply center for Asia Pacific. We are located in Depok, Jawa Barat, Indonesia. The plant was established back in 1970s by Roche and then was acquired in 2005 by Bayer. Our total area, more than 10 hectares. We can produce with a capacity more than 100 million packs of solid dosage form. Our core technology is a solid tablet, particularly the effervescence. We also seat the regional R&D Center of Excellence, and we in Cimanggis are the only Bayer consumer health site which already certified as integrated halal assurance system. We export to 22 countries in 4 continents. Mainly around 80% are in Asia Pacific and Australia, New Zealand region. The rest are for the EMEA, Europe, Middle East, Africa, and also the America. Our key destination countries are Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam, Australia, United Kingdom, and also Turkey. We also certified from several key regulatory body like Badan POM in Indonesia, TGA in Australia, and European Union GMP. We also certified, as I mentioned earlier, halal for exporting to various countries. The lean in Bayer actually enabled through the so-called product supply system or PSS, which is the key initiative to win the competition. Our key focus is on the power of zero loss and also power of 100% ownership, which is part of the cultural transformation. The product supply system itself uh, split into several pillars, yeah, namely the leadership, culture, organization, asset ownership, problem solving, progressive maintenance, and so on and so forth. Our key part as a fundamental is the servant leadership, run on standard, PDCA learning organization, and also business and loss driven. In Cimanggis, the lean transformation is basically oversight through the steering committee and the pillar structure. Steering committee mainly are the functional leader, which lead also each of the pillar. Uh, For here, actually, myself are leading the asset ownership pillar, and some of other functional leaders in Cimanggis leading the other pillars. In this case, we are trying to put that the emphasis of DPSS as a strategic part of Bayer. That's why it should be on the functional leadership as the facilitator and the steering committee. PSS has enabled the sustainable business outcomes which fuel company growth. We can put a milestone of the last 5 years where we laid down the foundation actually in Cimanggis, where in 2020 we started the annual Hoshin Kanri, the 5S, and also the performance dialogue in the shop floor. At the time, from the business result perspective, we started the right first time 8-ish percent result, and also OEE at the time not yet structurally tracked and reviewed, and saving at the time we already part of our initiatives. So along the years until this year, actually, we introduce, growing learning and also uh, gradual improvement from the introducing OE tracking concept and PSS pillar implementation. We also in 2022 passed the PSS phase assessment as the basic foundation and strengthening the hard model at production lines. And also last year we expand the PSS to all plant area, and also we implement the line-centric organization. And this year actually we already put end-to-end site loss analysis and digital OEE into the practice, where year to date, the business result for right first time already much improved, now in at 95%. The OE also has much improved, now sitting at almost 60%. Also, savings we are keeping above the average inflation in Indonesia. Uh, we put our strategy as a translation from the global vision. We put our vision at the side and also our purpose. We have the 3 to 5 year strategic pillar comprised into 4 pillars. And also we put 3 strategic focus to translate from the strategic pillar. And for this year, we actually put several strategic initiatives into 3 different quarters as a 90 days cycle. The breakthrough objective mainly is the one that we see it will directly impacting the business. We also set a right roadmap for the next 3 years. So we will update year-on-year basis for the next 3 years. Here we put for each of the strategic focus, we have several breakthrough KPI that we see it will be impacting our, let's say, achievement. We also, on the culture part, we put operating end-to-end, less complexity and high ownership as our emphasis. I will start actually the structure of sharing using this step-by-step, structure, starting from the strategy deployment. So in the strategy deployment, we consider the internal and external output. So as I mentioned here, we are being adaptive to change. So the case study will be the COVID and also the post-COVID. This is, I think, the greatest learning, unprecedented one that we actually experienced during the COVID. The demand was skyrocketing. Everything goes different way on how we produce because we have to keep the health protocol while producing the nutritional products which needed by the market at the time. Then we have to change on how we are doing things, right? But then in 2023, the post-COVID, everything goes differently, including how the market behavior, how the demand change. So we have also to adapt on that chain. So this one actually always considered as part of the internal and external output. So we did this as a annual cycle every quarter 3. So we see for the next 3 and 5 years whether the vision, purpose, and also the breakthrough objective still align with let's say the situation of market situation, and also on the annual basis on the quarter 3 we set up the site strategy, cultural assessment, and also the roadmap development. On the quarter 4, after we got these 3 parts, we then annual priorities and KPI determination, the site master plan, and also departmental and pillar master plan creation. And then on the following year, this is the time where we deploy into the PDCA board, PDCA in the department, in the pillar, and also for the personal scorecard for each of the employee. And then on the next quarter, until the end of the year, we have the 90-day cycle of review, and also anything that need to, let's say, adjusted, we will do by then. And then for the site KPI deployment, we use the site strategy input, basically, and then it will be deployed into department master plan. For example, here is the operations, quality. We also deploy into the pillar roadmap. For example, here is the asset ownership. Then it will be deployed further into the monthly review on the PDCA. So this is the way how we deploy from the strategic one until how we execute on the line. And then in the leadership part, we implement line-centric organization as a continuous improvement leadership at Bayer as a manifestation. So in line-centric organization, we have the line leader as the main owner of the work process, the line maintenance planner as the owner of the equipment maintenance, the manufacturing leader as the owner of line stabilization and also line standard, the shift line owner as the lead executor of the shift basis, and also the line technician as the lead executor of the defect fixing, work order, and etc. So the line-centric organization are working in a circle. They are allocated in the line cluster specifically, and they are working semi-independently as a mini company in each of the line cluster. We also develop them through the PSS by the skill level. So from the phase 0 until phase 3, we expect from the basic as a technician and operator, they can become a technical coach, and also the equipment owner will be the one who look after how improving the standard. The line-centric organization is the key for high-performing team on the shop floor. We started in the LCO back in May last year. So starting from there until year to date, actually the improvement has been evident, especially in the OEE, for example, where we see a significant improvement year on year, including how we can reduce the unplanned downtime by 50%. This is actually enabled by how we ensure the closing rate of defect find and fix, always 90% and above, how we ensure that currently, we are around 76% of population are actively contributing on the DFF, and we also closely monitor on how we are closing our A3R for the problem solving, and also we qualify the team for technical skill, and we control and confirming the process through weekly PSS Gemba. On the shop floor leadership manifested through the Gemba walk, we have 3 level where the Gemba carry out on the daily basis by the line leader and area owner. On the weekly basis is the pillar and also the departmental, and also on the weekly basis on the site level. We are doing the Gemba to ensure that everything goes well, and then what can be supported will be supported directly. For the KPI deployment, we have the strategy deployment workshop, defining initiative, and also people lead their commitment. And also we do for the personal commitment, people will put their commitment according to the strategy into the board for our evaluation. Site performance visibility facilitate the continuous improvement on daily basis. So we have until the shop floor is a real time recorded in the digital solution, and also we have on the board. We also have integrated site performance dashboard, so we can see actually the whole performance in the one dashboard. And then for the daily management system, we set a performance dialogue, from tactical to strategic. So on the tactical basis, we have on the shift basis throughout different work centers, uh, involving the line technician, operators, and also the shift owner. And then on the daily basis, we have involving the line leader and also the maintenance planner. And on a weekly basis, we have the site leadership team involved. And then on monthly basis, we have the site leadership connecting with the regional leadership. Yeah, this is in order to stabilize operation, the decision making at the lowest level, and also to achieve site performance. The key elements of the performance dialogue is the forward looking. So we are focusing on the proactive mitigation. Target setting has to be visualized. And also for the people, we focus on coaching, ownership, and also recognition. While the decision making is the thing that becoming our main outcome from the performance dialogue. Shop floor employees are empowered to involve in the improvement through e-speak up system. The objective is to facilitate improvement from shop floor through small group activities. So the workflow is the people will submit e-speak up through the digital form and then executed by the supported team. And then once the speak up is complete, it will be presented in the quarterly conference. The best of the best will get reward and recognition. So this actually ensure the performance can be improved and engagement are there. We can see here basically year on year we improve on how the speak up are closed. For example, year to date November this year already exceeding what was the full year last year we achieved on the speak up contribution from the shop floor. To ensure the process running on standard, it's the foundation of stable operation. We do the standardized work through 4 key standards: the defect find and fix, cleaning, inspection, and lubrication, center line management, and changeover management. This is executed with 100% ownership spirit and also autonomous line organization structure. This is several uh, a picture of how the operator carry out like defect find and fix or CIL using the digital form to ensure that the standard are there and then easier for them to do the reporting and also the analysis later on. The OE improvement also done through PDCA cycle to ensure the equipment reliability. So on the plan, we have the quarterly OE workshop. On the do part, we control it through the tier dialogue, the performance dialogue. And we do also the quarterly workshop to check on where we are. And then on the PDCA board, it's the implementation on the act for each of department on how to execute whatever that we conclude from the check session. So we have several dashboard that we review during the workshop. And also we involve across functional teams. Losses are eliminated until its root cause to prevent any recurrence. So we put as actually part failure as a trigger for line technician to analysis, and then A3R as a part of the tools for investigation to ensure that whatever we need for standard improvement is there. And also we have all of this put into the learning at Cimanggis Academy. So in Cimanggis Academy, A3R is integrated as part of qualification process and also as part of basic operator training. And also defective parts that we found from the part failure and also A3R process, we put it into the classroom in Cimanggis Academy to be used as the learning media to identify problems. At the end-to-end analysis and improvement, shortening lead time by 35%. This is also adapting to market change. So the lead time category, we are actually covering from the upstream until actually it is released into the customer warehouse, in the distributors, I mean. And then the opportunities that we actually covering is coming from the vendor management, including supplier partnership, from the process where we implement the repetitive flexible supply, on the technology where we actually do the remodeling for proximity-based work center, and also manufacturing late customization to ensure that the customization of product can be done really late at the process, so we can manage the agility and flexibility when there is a demand change from the market. And also on the quality, we exercise a skip testing and also shipment under quarantine to ensure that we can do a shorter lead time when we would like to supply to the customer. So the result basically in the past 1 year, we have been able to reduce significantly the inventory coverage, from previously end to end, yeah, pipeline including at the site is all more than 6 months. Now it's actually already reducing by 2 months. Yeah, so it's almost 50% reduction, while we are keeping the case fill rate at the optimum level as required by the customer. So on the impact, basically inventory impact is the cost avoidance in inventory value reduction by 2 million euros. On the minimum order quantity reduction, we were able to reduce to become only 1/3 of current MOQ. So the customer now can order at a lesser quantity. So we reduce the inventory and giving more agility for the customer. While on the COGM, basically, despite we have several, let's say, change with the repetitive flexible supply, the net saving was 2% of the COGM. So this is all the result from the lean effort that we started really in the last 5 years. Thank you for your attention. That's all that I can share.
Well done. Thank you so much, Adrian. And thanks for sharing this. Also, well done, Jarrett, for coaching along the way. You can definitely see some impressive, I think what it shows is the lean practices, right? Have actually translated into actual hard performance improvement. So it's not like we're doing lean for the sake of lean. You've actually used this to demonstrate improved performance, which is excellent, And I think the other thing that my limited experience in pharmaceutical is sometimes you'll hear, well, lean is hard to do it in pharmaceutical because it's very capital intensive. We can't move things around. Everything's fixed, machinery, equipment. But you've managed to do a lot of things, including a lot of people involvement, with even despite all the restrictions on hygiene and fixed equipment and everything like that. So I think it's very well done. And as you mentioned, is anyone? Let's see if anyone out there has any questions. Feel free to type that in the Q&A box. We have some time left. And as you guys are thinking about questions, oh, there's one already popped up. So I don't know if you guys can probably see this, but Julie has asked a question about, yes, also working in the pharmaceutical production, trying to implement lean. Yes. And
All
she
right.
would like how much time to take
Yeah.
it in.
Okay. Thank you, Julie, for the question. Yeah, I think John already do the bridging, right? Where I believe we in the pharmaceutical industry see lean is something that's very difficult because we have to be faster while there are a lot of regulation, binding us, right? So from your question, basically, lean transformation, it's not just started in 2020. Basically, since I joined Bayer at the time, so I was in the FMCG industry, and then I moved to Bayer at the time. The intention was actually to how to transfer where we are doing what we are doing in the FMCG into the pharmaceutical, but it doesn't take on the short term right basis. But I would say the traction really become faster once we have the product supply system, the PSS, in 2020. So I must say the traction really get more acceleration in the past 5 years. So to answer your question, I would say it's a 5 years at least, and we don't stop here. We are still continuing. We still have many things to improve. So I think lean is about continuous improvement, right? So, but to be here currently, it takes at least 5 years, starting from the PSS implementation in Bayer. I hope it answers your question.
Very good. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the question, Julie. Quite welcome. Yeah, let's see if anyone has any other questions. While people might be thinking of a question, I actually have something maybe you can also think about, Adrian, is during this transformation, like you just mentioned to Julie, 5 years or so, what do you think were some of your biggest challenges, especially maybe from a leadership perspective?
It's the fixed mindset about the regulation actually, and then how to push further on the radical change through a risk-based approach, John. So I think it's the biggest challenge because pharmaceutical industry traditionally are very cautious to approach change, right? So what we try to implement is on how we actually go beyond the the fence, yeah, the rigid fence, to see how the risk still can be let's say managed while we are doing step change to improve our process. So I think that's the biggest challenge really on the mindset from previously is like really fixated with the regulation, and then now pushing out into how we are doing radical change with the risk-based approach. So this is the biggest challenge, I would say.
Excellent. Yeah, and actually, maybe with that is another question came, and maybe it relates back to this fixed mindset that you had
Mhm,
to address, right? So if you're just
mhm,
starting, you might see the question, but what are the initial
mhm,
steps we need
mhm,
to take
mhm.
to implement?
Yeah, I think to fix the mindset, I think we just discussed about it. So it's not only, of course, first and foremost is on the leadership part, because you cannot do the change if the leadership team doesn't have the same frequency for the improvement, right? That's why the pillar, PSS pillar, the steering committee, we select from the functional leaders. Why? Once the functional leaders already have the same mindset, so it will be easier actually to, how do you call it? It will be contagious to the team, right? So I think this is the very initial steps. Is actually really on the how we get the team, the leadership team, on the same direction, and then after then that, then the real work will happen on how we actually bring our team to understand the situation. But I think having a psychological safety in the team, it's something that's very important. I think it's also been discussed in the other session earlier today. I think it's important in the lean because when you are in the shooting the messenger, for example, people will be reluctant to do the improvement. So I think psychological safety is something when we already put the leadership team on board, then we have to provide this kind of environment to the team so they can be, safe to try when they are doing the lean implementation. There might be some mistakes, of course, but we as a leader have to take, a risk-based approach to ensure that these mistakes won't lead to, critical one. But of course, we learn from those mistakes.
Excellent. Yeah, I get, and I guess where the PD. I always tell people, Toyota's been was doing psychological safety before anyone was calling it psychological safety. It wasn't a PDCA experimentation, getting people involved, listening to what they have to say.
Mhm.
So well done. I don't see any other questions, and we're just about right on time.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think there's one question, John.
Another one is there.
Yeah, there was.
There was that. Well, Julie answered her first, and then there was another one about the initial steps taken. I think you addressed that one, did you?
Yeah.
You meant because you mentioned the involving your functional leaders, right?
Yeah.
I guess that was some of your first steps.
Mhm.
Or anything you want to add to that one?
Yeah, maybe what I will, let's say, sum up from the presentation is this is not a project basically. It's something that you have to be on top of it on the day-to-day basis, right? Sometimes we think that lean as a project, so you put emphasis too much on the like like the timeline, etc. But I think it's a learning journey. So even we already put an effort, if we don't really put like the holder, it could be degraded, right? So I think that's why I emphasize also on the Gemba, on how the performance dialogue, how the coaching moment with the team is something that's very important because it shows how we connect with the team. It shows how we committed to where we are going. And then sometimes there is a distractions where, okay, you have to, how do you call it? Sacrifice, the idealism for something that maybe on the short-term basis. This is the distraction that we as leader have to manage on how to ensure we can keep both in balance, right? I think there is another thing. Okay. There's another question, John. Do we still have time for this? It's okay.
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, people can, if there's another session, they can exit this one and then they can go to that one. Otherwise, we can stay a couple of minutes.
All right.
You can see the
Okay.
question, but yeah, how can we
Yeah,
get
yeah.
employees who already have a heavy workload to participate? Good question.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think this classical problems actually. Also, I think in the past 2 years, we had several like, employee survey or, the pulse check, something like that. And this kind of topics is always becoming the top Pareto. Yeah. So about the workload. So I think what we also still have struggle with that, to be frank. But what we are currently doing is actually to eliminate, the task that basically it's not important, but it was required just for the sake of the SOP, right? So then we have to see also the procedure, how we can simplify that one without, of course, violating any, regulation. But sometimes it's all about the, paperwork. And then if the paperwork are still needed because of, regulation, so we try to also approach on the digitalization. Just for information, I think in Cimanggis, Indonesia, our site is not the most advanced one for the digitalization, but we try to put the digitalization for the things that are, how do you call it, fit for purpose, right? Because sometimes we were emphasizing too much for the digitalization, but we forgot actually what is the purpose for that digitalization. So we only focusing on the digitalization as a tools. So, but here in Chimangis, I think we also try to balance between on what to do. It's not only like a project to, doing the digitalization, but it's like picking which one that will be giving, less workload to the team. Frankly speaking, with the current setup in Bayer that we rolled out last year, the dynamic shared ownership, the so-called dynamic shared ownership. Now we also doing every initiatives in the 90-day cycle, yeah, in a smaller mission team, yeah, involving like 7 to 9 people, for example. In the beginning, there's always also complaints for the team that they've been involved in too many missions. So at the end, actually, it's our role as leaders actually to prioritize which missions are we can drop or we can let's say postpone, and which mission that we have to, let's say, prioritize for the first 90 days, and then what will be on the second 90 days, something like that. So this classical problem we also still face, but I don't have any secret recipe on that one, but rather on how to do the prioritization and to pick also which one that we can digitize based on the fit for purpose focus. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, prioritization is extremely important. And nobody has any extra time, right? And in some cases, you might even have to pay a little. What Toyota tends to do is pay a little overtime to work on Kaizen and things like that. So you do what you need to do. But great. I don't see any more questions. So thanks everyone for your engagement. If you're still with us and your questions. And I guess that we can probably start closing out. So thanks again, Jared. Thanks again, Adrian.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, Adrian.
Thank you, Jared.
See you later. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Yeah.
Thank you. See you.
Have a good
See you later.
journey. Yeah. Goodbye.
Bye bye.
Bye.